What's up, everyone? Welcome to Toxic Hustle. My name is TrajicK Jeffrey, and this is a HustleUp Toxic Labs update about what's been going on, what we're seeing, what we've been looking at as far as business. So let's get into it. AI has no passion. I've been looking at what does it really mean for AI to be in a business use case capacity. It's the same thing that I've had to do when I had to learn about the internet. Same thing when I was learning about computers. The same thing as I was learning portions of the media business, i.e., me learning Photoshop so that I could be a graphic designer, realizing that graphic designers weren't respected, making pivots with my career, looking at the technology. So from graphic designer becoming a web designer, because it still involved the same software, Photoshop. And then I had to add a new piece of software, Dreamweaver. Adding those two pieces of software together, I had leverage. I could design something visually on a screen, just recreate what I see. Oh, this website looks like this. I can do something better than that. Here, I'll design it up, show them in Photoshop, chop it up in Dreamweaver. I have HTML code. I can move fast. At the time, people like me were getting crapped on because I wasn't a purist. I knew how to write HTML, but I did not think that, and was proven right, when I said, hey, everybody's going to go this direction. And Dreamweaver became huge. I moved faster. And then some of those purists shifted over and began using the technology. Why? Because their bosses above them weren't satisfied with somebody working 8 hours to get one page done, with a bunch of potential code errors and issues all over. When they hire a new person to come in the building who knows the software, well, now all of a sudden, oh, they know the software and they're running pages up really fast. That's a threat, because I was that person. I came into a job, and when I got hired, the lead designer was one of those purists. And my boss who hired me, what up, Mark? Mark hired me and was like, hey, we're using Dreamweaver. Can you use it? And I was like, yeah. How do you do this? And I just did the shortcut key. And he was like, wait. Show that again? And I showed it. Because for me, if I know the shortcut of the software, then I can move in and out of the software without looking for an item. So when I showed him, yeah, I know how to use the software. Blip. Oh, wow. I taught him something. And all I did was learn shortcuts to software. But that's kind of what life is. How do you use the technology, find a shortcut in it, right? Because there's always a hack. How do you hack the software to make it do what you want to do? This is life. Life is not physical. Nothing but light bouncing off of stuff. We're in software. So how do we hack it to get things to move in our favor? Now, you have to have leverage. Technologically, everything else is saturated. Everything is saturated. So you have to look, what is the newest tech moving to the surface? Then you have to look at the flaws. What doesn't it do? Where isn't it? How do I have the ups to utilize it? Where is my leverage? This discussion today is about that. It's about leverage. It's about using this new technology for its leverage and what I've been doing to do so. What I'm doing is I'm training y'all to get this information, not because I'm being happy-go-lucky. I am being my brother's keeper. That is honesty at work. That is my passion at work. One of the reasons I'm making an album called what it is, I'll release the name of it, but passion is in the title. Passion is what's missing. Why are you passionate? The machine doesn't understand that. It can get it. It can sympathize with it maybe in the future, but it doesn't get it. And we're not talking because I say so. I have spent hours upon hours working, building this website out, Labs, Toxic Hustle Labs. You can see at the bottom left-hand corner, labs.toxichustle.com. I've been building this out. It could get lost. This is all AI built. I built this because the leverage I used to have, which was WordPress, is now gone. It doesn't work. It does not do what I needed to do at the speed I needed to do it. It could not do this. I could do it, but it couldn't. Notice how I'm phrasing that. It couldn't. WordPress, as a piece of software, could not control itself. That's a different mind state to have. If I'm into building things, I need to build them. I have an idea and I want to flex it. In the future, I can get developers to build it out, but I want a proof of concept to say, I have an idea. I've had this idea for a multitude of years and have not been able to fulfill it. I told my cousin at her wedding, or at my wedding, no, but it was one of them. I think it was, no, before her wedding. I think it was when it was when I was getting my mom during coronavirus. I told my cousin, I was like, I'm building a lab. Cuz I don't know if you remember me telling you. I said, I'm building a lab. I was serious about that. Why? I knew that was the direction I would need to do to be able to offload the information I was studying. Because me just telling one person, and not really organizing it towards a goal. The goal is, what happens when the system begins to finally show the cracks I've been talking about since the first toxic thought? Go back. I've been saying this. Look at my prior toxic thoughts, where I was just dumping my brain out the same way I'm still doing to get, this is exactly what I'm doing to get things like this out, to have a more condensed version of the 4 to 5 hours that I used to do videos on the lives. Because I knew in the future, as I told y'all, I would start disappearing to start working. And then I told y'all, I'll be back, but I've got to optimize it. Well, I'm back. I'm not as long in the tooth, even though I still am. I try to keep it down to an hour for the toxic thoughts, hour and change in most parts. And then here, it tends to bleed into being long as well. But I still condense, I'm still organized better than I was, and I can present better than I could. To get us aligned a little bit better, because we have to get to the point where we understand that the system as it was is over. You're watching you're just looking at the shell, thinking the heart's still beating. The body's still warm, but it's long since gone. That's why they had to push the last surge of cash flow into the system. And that's why the checks are starting to bounce. That's why they have to do a mass layoff. There is no technology to support the idea of supremacy. And the technology is already diversified enough that it's already spread everywhere. The lead of this technology, while America's seemingly in the seat, we already know that the Chinese models are crushing it. With no call home, so they can sit there and say, oh, well, Chinese AI steals your data. How? I put it on my machine, and it's not pinging through the firewall until I tell it to the IPs I told it to go to. What you don't understand is war looks different on a technological front. China played the same game before by finding a piece of software, i.e. Bill Gates, Microsoft, and then they infiltrated that software everywhere. They've been on your machines for years. Who built your laptop? Who built the parts for your PC? And you're worried now? That's funny. Let's look at the moment we're in. The funding bubble has been visible. Everybody's been putting money into the next tech, the next tech, the next tech. It went from Facebook talking about how many users they were signing up. You don't hear that no more. They're just telling you how many people they can retain. And then, like his mentor, Bill Gates, he made sure to put some type of model for advertising in his system. Oh, Bill Gates didn't do that. Yes, he did. The software on your desktop, the bloatware in your machines is kickbacks to him. Then and now. And now you're seeing the machine just is going to work by itself, i.e. why everybody's mad at Windows 11. Windows 10 was the alpha omega. It was the ending of your non-agentic situation. In this, 11 is the paralyzation of you with AI. And companies have bled money for AI's sake. Oh, we're doing this. Give me some money. The chip company, NVIDIA, then invested in another AI company, that invests in another AI company, that goes back and buys some more NVIDIA and cycles that money round and round, and the evaluations will stay up. But y'all, they're just running in a circle. And when you disconnect from the narrative or the news media and you begin to focus on your skills, on your services, what are you going to do? Because they have no solutions. Ask the millions upon millions of students with debt for degrees that matter not. At least at the last financial collapse of 2007, 2008, CEOs could work at Starbucks, which they did. CEOs, go look it up. CEOs in the news were working at Starbucks after their companies collapsed. There's no Starbucks this time to go to because Starbucks is downsizing. Starbucks is laying people off. Starbucks is deunionizing. You're seeing projects, commercial real estate projects, residential real estate projects begin to slow down because AI is not asking for more people. But truth bomb, AI doesn't create value. People do. The tech will evolve. And at the end of the day, passion will move everything. And it has not figured that out yet. And it can't really figure that out. It's a swag. So, as we are already going to be seeing, and have already begun seeing, i.e. Timbaland and friends, creators who are fusing with AI, that's putting the emotion into the AI. Now, some people that are utilizing it, i.e. Mr. Timbo, the passion in them has kind of burnt out. They have a creative wonderment for the technology. They're interested in not having to pay people no more. So there's a pretty much a little bit of a greed factor in the back end of it. And he can no longer do the things he was doing by piggybacking directly off of all of the artists that he used to do before. But nobody can. You know, the idea of a Dr. Dre hanging on to a Scott Storch and other producers behind the scenes for a multitude of years is over. Or the producer behind the group guy. Teddy Riley, that's Pharrell. That's where Pharrell comes from. So you've got to see that there's a world where you will break out in time, but for a good portion of amount of time, you have to feed the gatekeeper above you. Now, what happens when you shatter the gates? You break all of them, all at once, everywhere, at once. What happens if you just shatter them all? You start this, first thing you'll see is cracks in any business model, i.e. the music model. Where's the investment money for music? It's gone. Where's the investment money for video? It's gone. Where's the investment money for software? It's gone. Because they don't have any more debt to support their narratives. They're now going to push it through their influencer guilds. We've already seen that. $800 billion, just small changing it, was the AI investment. And I went and checked it out. You'll see for like this person put 124 million, this one put 215 million, this person put this person put that. And when you sum it all up, you've got billions of dollars that have circulated into a technology still needing to prove itself. And a lot of it just got burnt up in hardware. And for the most part, 23% of the people that are all running to AI all ran to try, I'm shutting down this and I'm going to get rid of people. And they all did it last year. Only a few of them have come back saying, and I think the numbers actually dropped as I'm doing research. I think the numbers dropped even further, that have any ROI baked into them. Because there's a reality that comes past your expectations. I want to just show you what I mean by technology and the creative changes. In just Photoshop alone, if I was doing work, it was work. I mean, I had fun. I was doing my airbrushing. I was doing all the stuff that I was doing. And then, your bones start hurting for the amount that you're using the mouse. So now you've got to find another way. So then you get a rollerball mouse. And then you got to change up from that because it's still stress on you. So then you go to a tablet and a pen. And back then it was clunky. And even the most expensive ones were, if you look at what we have now to what we had then, now it's like drawing on paper. Before it was like another mouse in your hand, pressing on a hard-ass spring to try to get work done. Regardless, anywhere between 95 to 99, doing all the work that I do, I could easily, just like I make music, it would take me 8 hours on an MPC 2000 XL. In Photoshop, it could take me 8 hours to make a full-fledged piece of art. That's me going online, trying to find images that I could use to airbrush them together to make something. And then getting the right font, checking, going to the font labs or the font websites, looking for the right font to put everything together. So you easily could be playing around in Photoshop 8 hours to get one piece of graphic done. And then you still, like I said, airbrushing. For me as an airbrush artist, I would be trying to cut things, people out of their backgrounds, because there was no, you got a transparent. No, everything had to be worked on. Any art I started, I had to start from scratch. That was the creativity part, right? By 2010, you see more auto select tools the selection tools start changing, the masking tools start changing. It gets a little bit easier to start cutting and removing people out. By 2023, I'm generating a graphic, not even the full image, but I don't have to go to the web to get my images so I can cut them out and put them together. I can now get an image of the individual thing that I'm looking for, and then I can make parts and I can make my own scenes, and I never had to go to the web. I'm not just building the image is in the entire spectrum of everything that I'm intending to do. I wanted to make an image, but I had to make this one image to make this one presentation, and now I don't have to do none of that. Nor go look for the image, nor have to worry about copyright strikes, none of that. My intention when I made the art was so that I could make the art towards putting it towards a piece of content that I'm releasing so I could do a presentation or talk to folks. But never getting to the point where I could do the recording to talk to folks, because I was caught up in just getting the pieces together. Speed now is meeting intention. If I want to build a website, I build it. It builds itself. In this era, I have an assistant. Meet George Jetson. I said that years ago. I said, the world we look at will look a lot like the Jetsons. Not so much skyships as, hey, build this for me and do this, right? George would go to work and tell the robot what to do. We are now doing that text to intent. I have a conversation with ChatGPT. I get the requirements docs I need. I put it into a piece of software. I have a conversation with it so it knows my intents. It spits it back out, lets me know what it's about to build and what the output's going to look like, and goes and builds it. Every new feature I asked for, even up to the point of last night needing to put services together, which is why I'm 2 days later recording this than I need to be, because I needed to get a way to get 3 pricing options. Because I was only doing, hey, it's just this one price. But now I have 3 pricing options. I got to still fill out what you get, because this is just this default stuff that was in there from me getting it together, because there's way more stuff that comes with what I work on when I do the videos. Point is, the real question isn't can AI do it? It's can you make it worth seeing? The tools are evolving, but our craft doesn't die. It augments, adjusts, or updates. I'm still creative. I'm just using a different portion of my creative animal. Before it was, how do I get this one image to do this one thing, or look like this one thing, or, oh, this thing I saw online was so cool, how can I recreate that effect? Spending hours learning the tutorials to do all the things that was so fancy that are gone now, because time equals productivity. And we have a million other things to do than to just, oh, I just want to do this one thing. I only wanted to be a MC, a rapper. But I had to become a producer. Then I had to learn mixing and mastering. Then I had to learn marketing. Then I had to learn design, which got me into graphics in the first place. It was all because I needed to make a CD cover for my art, and I couldn't pay nobody else. To then learn how to do my own music videos. But really put that skill of music videos to test with my friends. Because I knew if I got my friend to want a music video and I did the music video, I could put in work doing, like, trying to figure out all the fancy stuff. And it's funny what you'll do for other people that you won't do for yourself. Then I did put out a music video for myself finally. And I'm now continuing to put them out. What I'm doing creatively, I now just have a bigger view of what all the work I got to do. There's way more steps to do. Yeah, I would love to just be the guy that could just write songs someplace. But I'm glad I'm also the guy that gets to shape the entire vision. I don't see that as a curse. I know a lot of artists that don't want that responsibility, but sorry. This is why there's starving artists instead of people who are starving for the art. Let's just go ahead and dispel a few myths of this AI magic, because it is a black box, and that's one of the problems. It has a memory problem. It does not remember everything. And when you take the memory problem, as we look at everything else, keep the memory problem in your mental Rolodex. Imagine having a conversation with a friend that tomorrow doesn't remember you had the conversation. Similar to Alzheimer's. And when you put into perspective that the machine has a memory limit, alone can't save you. Your business is going to fail not from the fact that you lack AI, but the fact that you lack clarity or understanding. See, because I know AI has a huge memory problem and it has no real passionate creativity, I win on those accords, being able to get it to give me the things that allow me to show what passion looks like. But it can't really understand how I got there. And even when it listens to your audio and transcribes it, it's just transcribing. It's not really getting intent. Vision is greater than computation. We can see more dots outside of the spectrum because we're in our own environment, so we can see it, but the AI is in an environment looking at a whole bunch of different disparate systems. And again, every AI currently we're working with has a huge memory issue. And even if you give it a million context windows, so that means way more space. Just think like the gigabyte wars when, you used to have 1 megabyte floppy disk we went to CDs, and then you could get like a gigabyte, and then, 100 megabytes, 250 megabytes on a zip disk back in the day. Or your phone. How much memory space you have in it, right? You got 128, 256, 512, right? We have a memory limit to a point, but we also have the way that we can retrieve information from yesterday, last year, last month. And it's probably horrifying when there's gaps in those memories. Well, AI is going through that right now. So it cannot replace your understanding of your customer or having a real direction. Knowing where you're actually going to. Again, it doesn't know where you're going to, and you're remembering all the things you need to get. Now, I've had it come up with these amazing ideas for marketing strategies, but as I'm rolling things out, I'm like, that's really cool for this type of business, but it's not really for us. So I'm going to have to navigate this a little bit differently. That sounds good on paper. I'll do some of it, but not all of this is actually where it fits. And you're not taking into consideration my time having to program, market, and develop the content on the other side. I have to remind it, hey, it's just me. And you're expecting me to do all this and still create this and this and this while at the same time. That's an impossibility. So what I've had to learn is, what is my amplification? What can I speed up doing? I can now speed up being able to have a more organized conversation with y'all. I can have a conversation, do a toxic thought by dumping my brain into a recording device. I can then take that data, organize it, and then be able to see what you see right here. An amplification of me being able to get a message, but keep it in target of where we're heading towards. That we're heading to a place where toxic thoughts are really me just dumping things and I'll jump all over the place. You're getting a lot. This tool amplifies you being able to have transactions. How much work can I actually do for my clientele? Keeping the price down because, hey, it's not 8 hours anymore for me to get one graphic or one song. Now it's, okay, it's not even one song, one beat. Now we're getting to the point where you're not just crafting one graphic, you're crafting the whole marketing campaign in an hour. Here's the design, here's how we can target this audience base. And creatives don't want to do that. They're in their own world drawing this beautiful thing. You're going to have that off the side to survive this. Remember, the key word is starving artists. And starving artists needed what? Some rich benefactor to be able to support, the patron to support their work. That's why you've got Patreon. See? Patron. They're already telling you. And they're already positioning you to that thought of somebody needs to support you. Well, so what do you bring as value to do so? This technology amplifies you being able to do something. Because at the end of the day, you are the business. Every person is their own corporation, because just like every corporation has its own identification number, i.e. it's EIN, you have your own SSN. You're already incorporated because you're on a stock market. Stop playing. So since we're just getting into our understanding that we're a corporation, your goal now is to literally mind your own business. Mind your business. Takes on a new meaning. Learned that from my wife. I was trying to force my business, I was going to market her, and kind of where she felt was, I was using her business to piggyback off of what I was trying to, not piggyback off. It was, my business, it felt like I was pressuring her business to support my business. And what I meant was, no, I'm going to use your business as a way to have a client that I could do all these things for, that gives me a portfolio. And with that portfolio, I can get work, do something, because I've been laid off since 2016. I've had to hustle for clientele, doing something for them. How do I get graphics done? How do I get their flyers done? How do I create commercials for them? Because some of them are asking for that now. Some of them are asking for social media. Let me figure out how I can do this. How do I do it at a price that's reasonable? Why? I am my own business and I need to mind it. And that even goes to now me having to create multiple media channels, and me training and teaching y'all how to do that begins to shape y'all being able to launch channels for your clients, because you are the business. As we've been noticing, AI is eating up everything. If you go to Google right now, Google already takes over the top line of the address bar. Google is no longer sending you web traffic. Your reach, or your organic reach, is shrinking. Now, the numbers that you see on the screen are not from any news source. This is just, on average, typical small websites, what they've been experiencing and why they needed help in the first place to market. In 2015-ish, most were seeing an organic reach where they didn't have to spend the money, and this is why they needed to get like more blog posts and everything else. They typically had an organic reach of around 16%. Rona time, right? Massive amounts of people are now online, forced to be so. You're not going to be working at an office. You're going to go ahead and, now that you're home, try to figure out all of your passions or whatever you need to do to get it cooking. This is where the lab in my head was born, because like everybody's finally going to get it, that there's no sense of commuting to an office if you have a broadband internet provider in your house. But because now there's more websites, and because now those websites need to be promoted, and people have to now post on social media, they noticed that their organic reach, the search engine, was dropping even further. They went from 16% to 5%. Because the way that people were finding companies were through TikTok and through Twitter and through YouTube. So they're not going to the search engine looking for you, nor do they even think about it anymore half the time. I don't. I think, do I want to start a new conversation with ChatGPT, or should I go ahead and just make myself a miscellaneous talking chat before I even go to look at Google anymore? Because Google's job is not to give me the results I want. Or I chat with Google specifically for the AI. I've already noticed my habit change. And do I click on the pages to the right, though here's where the citations are? Do I click on them? Nope. So now what do you see in 2025? Because that was my habit in 2020. Organic reach is less than 1%. Because you now need to be social. It goes back to what I was telling you, that everyone is their own business. Well, guess what? All businesses must become a small form factor media company. So if you understand what the dark web is, which is just a website that isn't seen by Google, and these platforms can gate your visibility, where, hey, TikTok don't like what you say. What do? Click, they turn you off. And your .com isn't visible. It's invisible until you share it. Before, you would submit it to Google. Google will go through your page, but that's what Google was built on. Google was pretty much spyware that went on the internet collecting every single website out there and became a snitch portal. It was great for like hackers to utilize to find all the software they needed. So you can now build your entire business on all these other platforms out here. And at any given point, click, they turn you off. They can delete your identity overnight. True ownership means having your own home. And that doesn't equal a new Discord, because I've already seen a Discord I supported for a multitude of years disappear overnight. And basically it's like losing the Library of Alexandria all over again. And that was the solidification of the ideal that you need ownership. This is another reason why I stepped away to do some extra work. Not just ownership for myself, but what I was trying to do in the producer community I was in, this Discord I was in, what I was trying to do for a multitude of years, but was always getting pushback, to implement a platform with automation. Before I did that, I built a new platform, a web platform, someplace I could call home, a .com to call my own. And can I still be disconnected? Of course I can. But this is why code export was the most important thing to me. Can I export the code? And then can I move the code to any server I wanted? Then we can get a development team on it once we have enough cash flow to start maintaining it and growing it for ourselves. Then white label it and sell it to everybody. Get it to a point where we think it's great, then open source it. We'll have enterprise level clients that are the ones that pay, and the open source version will still be live in effect. It's pretty much going to be day one, this one. But from this place, we're going to grow the software from there. Ownership and creation of your own ownership properties. Passion versus noise. What we're about to see is more AI, which will equal more content, which will equal more noise. Imagine, if you will, the flood of 10 billion images in 2024. And we know it's more than that. But just imagine, if you will, at bare minimum 10 billion AI images flooded all of 2024. What's your filter? The truth of the matter is, if you can make somebody feel something. See, art, if anybody can create music, is similar to how FL Studio turned a lot of people into producers that could not afford an MPC and could afford all this hardware, but you could afford to get it for free where you got it, the way it was back in the day. And then you could afford its price point to give you something, a tool that you could drag and drop any wave file in there and make any type of beat you wanted. So it's really going to be then the tastemaker, the person that makes the vibe. What's your taste like? Do multiple people enjoy that taste? And if that's the case, then can you scope it out and scale it? Computers can't fake swag. They can have a good gift to gab. They can write out a cool few phrases. But authenticity is authenticity. And a sentiment is felt because the energy behind what is being stated or said to you still matters. That matters. Authenticity matters. Most people, if you're putting out good content, they don't really give a damn. I've watched many videos where this is the perfect use for AI. I'm like, wait, it's the same thing that this guy did, but you call this crap. Why? Because you felt nothing from it. Other than this guy using AI for AI's sake. And it's, I didn't feel nothing. I didn't laugh. There was nothing. When everybody saw the Sasquatch, boom, everybody was laughing. See Martin Luther King and some grills, oh, the world is ending. I get the respect for respect's sake, but we're going to have to understand that copyrights were never a thing. The audience don't care if you use AI. They care if it moves them. Let me explain and give you a practical application as to that thought process and why I say this is what's going to end up happening. There was a time when everybody in New York, if you wanted to be a rapper, MC, you would actually go to the labels, find out from whomever you could find out where they're at, not the record label home office, but where they have these subletted studios all over the city. We'd go to those studios. They, as in any artist, an artist would go to the studios. I say they because I went with my friends. My friends would go to that studio and they found it. I went with them one night because I said, let me go. I'll bring the liquors. So everybody said, all right, cool. If Traj is bringing liquor, and I said, dude, I just want a vibe. I'm not trying to get on a track, none of that. Though I knew one of them wanted me to do a hook for them. So I was like, all right, well, if this happens and we can get to the second song, that's where it was. It was like there was another song. And if we could get to that second song, then cool, I could get on a track. So between time, I'm like, let me see the studio. I just want to see what it looks like, see what I'm working with, and see if I need to go there or I have an idea in my head that I think I can record my own crap, but I'm not quite sure if the computers are ready for that. So I go into the studio, I walk in, and I see them recording, and I'm looking, and I don't see it going on any tapes or anything. And I'm like, where is the record? Like I asked the guy, one of the side engineers, I was like, hey, man, you don't record on DATs? He was like, no, we've pretty much finalized on that, but not here. DATs can get expensive. We record to hard drive. Wait, question mark, ding, ding, ding. Wait, what? Yeah, we record to a hard drive directly. I was like, oh, that's cool. So when they had a break, like the guys they were going through some stuff with their rhymes. So I had a chance to talk to the engineer. So I was like, yo, man, I hate to bother you, man, but yo, this is really dope. Can I ask you some questions? He's like, sure. I was like, yo, you record via computer to hard drive, right? He's like, yeah. I was like, wow, that's really freaking dope, man. He's like, yeah, I mean, that's what we've been doing. I was like, but so many studios are still datting it. He's like, yeah, I mean, we still do some of that for our, like, the higher up stuff, but for the most part, we're just recording straight to hard drive. I was like, all right, cool. I didn't ask no technical stuff. I was like, hey, what software are y'all recording with? He was like, oh, it's Pro Tools. So everybody was cool with that because they were coming from Full Sail and they had all learned Pro Tools. So it was like, okay. And that's why I was thinking about going to Full Sail. I was like, all right, cool, man. That's really dope. Left it alone, just kind of watch from there on out. And I just watched them record to track, record everything. And I want to say that either that night or the next day, I said, yo, man, I'm not going back to no more studios. One of them was like, what happened? I was like, yo, one, they went to the studio and they got way too smoked out. They barely got through their verses. They paid, it was like a dead time. So what happens is these subletted studios, they're always available for the main studio companies to be able to throw their artists in there. And what these guys would do is like gap time. So if there was a gap of time, like an hour or two before another artist is going to come in, they would pull in their B producers or engineers and put them in the seat. And it's like, hey, there's some guys that are going to come in. They've got X amount of hours. They're only paying this much. Just make sure you get the money. So they would bite on every piece of time that they can. And then it was a quick mix. Make sure they get a tape or a CD. They'll burn you a CD immediately and hand you off. And then boom, you're out. And then they'll just delete the board and they'll be ready for the next session. When I caught that, I was like, okay, I'm not going to another studio because y'all, I'm just going to build my own studio at my house. They laughed. What? We build a studio at your house. I was like, no, I'm going to build a studio in my house. I said, studios are all going to start falling away. Again, they laughed. I was like, it's cool, man. I get it. I'm the weirdo. But yeah, they're going to go away. Everybody's going to record at home. I was validated, I think, within a year when I found out the Pokemon theme song was written in somebody's bedroom and he recorded it in the bedroom. Then later down the line, after I learned how to build my own studio and put my own computer together for audio, which we all now know how to do. You get a computer, you get a sound card. Now it's a Focusrite. Back in the day, it was a Creative Lab Sound Blaster. You plugged it in. You would open up your PC and plug it in. And then you had input and outputs and the microphone leads in some case, or MIDIs. I think it was MIDI, not microphone. You had your MIDI leads. Once you could directly ingest audio from a microphone, all of that hardware-ish began to die. My point is, I saw the leverage that the software would bring to being able to output my own music and material. Because not only had I seen it at that studio, but my own dad, back in the day, had used something called Cakewalk. And it clicked for me. If the PC had a version of Cakewalk, that's the only software I knew, and then here's this version of Pro Tools, and I was like, oh, it's a Mac, and I found out all the limitations of me going that direction. It made it easy what direction I was going to go into, the one that was the least amount of friction. By default, I acted just like every other computer. I found the path of least resistance, Windows. No disrespect or anything to Mac aficionados. Love and respect y'all. But there was no way for me to build a Hackintosh without any performance issues if I could just build it in Windows as a Microsoft machine and get the software. And there's no there's limitations on the hardware. That's whatever I paid. If I bought some cheap ass hardware, it's gonna output cheap ass material. So my input determined my output, and I always made sure that the computers I built would at least be able to get me my graphics. So if I built a good graphic machine, by default, for some reason, it was going to be a good music machine. It had enough memory to do the things it needed to do. It had RAM. I put in good video cards, gaming cards, and I knew what software worked great with those gaming cards through my research. I spent time doing the due diligence to find out whether or not the path I was going had legitimacy over the long term. Why did I tell you that story? To break down technology back to the feelings. I saw change through my feelings. Oh, that's going to happen? Oh, y'all are doing this with this? Ah. See, what we just went through was me showing you that first we went through renting a studio to going to building them ourselves. The act of needing to get permission to be in that studio at a certain timeline to owning your own production, change of thought. So that's important to remember. Through having to figure out who you need to talk to even find that studio, the gatekeeper, to how do I talk to y'all directly? Direct distribution. This YouTube channel is my direct distribution. Whatever social media I'm on are my direct distributions. Well, why haven't you been marketing? Because I've been figuring out what am I going to show you at scale. At TrajicK Hustle, we are a research development company disguised as a media company. I said that over and over and over and over. But what did that really mean to me? I didn't know. I was really spouting some shit. I knew I was in media, and I knew I was a media company. But what does that really mean over the next 5 years, the next 10 years? So 5 years ago, Toxic Thoughts, I started dropping where I thought things were heading, talked about automation, talked about the Internet of Things, talked about artificial intelligence mixed with automation and process automation, i.e. N8N. Why? Because if you can create easier, the leverage of me being able to record my own music wasn't a matter of weeks anymore. It's a matter I can do it in a day. What happens when video would condense to do that? We went from audio production and getting a professional sound out of your bedroom. Well, we need to handle the repetitive things of marketing that probably with some type of automation. Our job is to teach that by doing it. Eat your own dog food. But I had to become a media company. That means I have to think of scale. How do I scale up that media? The creation. How do I get to video content with no crew? How is that really feasible? The practicality of it. Then distribution. How do we get it out and published in as many places as possible, as fast as possible? I actually fixed that portion, distribution, in spring. The last lap of this distribution problem is the video creation. I can create music fast, and it's getting faster with things like AI now, where it's not, hey, song, make something, and I'm going to just say it's mine. It's, hey, how do I use my voice to shape my intent to get the song I want from my passionate thought processes? You don't need to know why I'm doing it this way, but I'm doing it this way. Now do we get a video for that? This is the last leg, hence why I made a course for it. The future is transparent. The next phase of our entrepreneurship is going to be transparency. Radical change. So radical transparency. The need for people to show their process. When I'm working with clientele, now I'm showing you just how much work it is. Hence the premium video. 96 hours of work to get that music video done. And documenting it, the wins and the fails. That is the lab that I released. The behind the scenes for Armed and Dangerous. Which if you go to the courses, that's right here. The AI music videos for music makers. And it's the making of an AI music video, Armed and Dangerous. I'm showing you the back end to beginning and end. And it's not every single step, but I show you how you achieve every major stage. And some of the notes along the way of hiccups and me troubleshooting something. And I explain what I did and what I did different. And one of those is at the beginning of the music video, I was working with very short clips, like 5-second video clips coming out of the AI. And by the middle of the music video, I changed over to having the video extended to 9 seconds. And with that, I had more than enough footage that I could then, it was easier for me to work. So you see me working hard up front and working way easier towards the end, which is longer content is better. Don't just use the 5-second shot that you get free, not a message. Don't just use that first shot, extend it. If the software doesn't extend, don't use that software, because that is the bare minimum that you need. Because then anything 9 to 10 seconds, you need 9 to 10 seconds of footage for a music video. And that's why this is separate. How I do 60-second and 30-second commercial spots, that's a different mind state. That's the next video I'm working on for the premium section. There will be a free video that precedes it that works out the idea of the strategy for you, that you can just go and run with that. You don't even have to go to premium. But if you want to see everything and support, I would suggest going premium. But showing your process, the wins and the failures is part of that. That's me walking my talk, not just telling you some hyperbole, some BS. I'm being live and direct. I am doing the things that I say I do. That's why I'm a lab. I can do that. Now, will everybody have a lab in the future? I don't know. I think you are your own lab already. I think you're your own business. I think you're your own lab. You do your own research, right? You do your own studies, right? Then you are a researcher, i.e., you're doing a research project. And if it's in the technical science, then anyway, sharing your progress is one of, like I'm doing right now. Real-time updates, and you can always polish later, but the hardest thing is getting started. I want to break you through that obstacle and roadblock. How do we get there faster? How do we get you out of the frustration of inability to move? Well, just move. Watch what I'm doing and just do it. Because I spent so long trying to figure it out so that it's not easy. I'm not even going to say that it's easy. This is still work. And that's where people's herds, their mentality, a lot of the herd mentality is, oh, AI is going to do everything. But then all the scientists that are behind the scenes with AI, and I just watched a video this morning where one of the guys, the founders and a co-founder of OpenAI, is openly saying that he's looking at another 10 years before the agents even become a practicality. I say 5. Maybe less, but I say 5 because the AI agents I see now have a memory issue. I'm going to go back to that. Build a community. You're not building a bunch of clients. You have to be the evangelist to your own community until it can vandalize itself. Community exceeds, replaces corporation. Collaboration will defeat competition. You can always compete. You can find somebody you can compete with because that will give you a drive to move forward and push yourself. Because being in your own lane by yourself with no competition is whack. I've been there for a very long time. Now, because I'm a media company, I'm like, oh, I have competitors everywhere. Let me see who I want to target. Not negatively, not in a negative sense, but more on a, hey, it gives me an adrenaline rush to compete. But I still would hold out my hand and say, yo, how do we collaborate? I'm still competing with you, bro, but how do we collaborate? And then it's the last stage, and it's the longest mile, is the creating of revenue. Biggest one for me is being out here as public as I am, because I've always I'll go to a corporation, but that doesn't help y'all. See, that's how I can be selfish. I can just say, oh, I'll go get a job. But if I get a job, 8 hours of my day is worrying about their problems. Then when I come home, I got to work my problems out, be there for my family, and get some rest because I got to go deal with their problems for another 8 hours. And it's longer than that because I got to drive to work and get back from work. And it could be hours of drive. So you could say 10 hours of my day is gone for somebody else. I'm not doing that right now. I'm doing for me. I'm putting 8 hours in me and changing the way that I can create revenue. Because visibility plus skill plus automation equals some form of survival. We're just trying to survive. And that's not pretty when everybody else is balling out of control and everyone now is finding out all of that ball till I fall-ish was all a lie. At our lab, the formula, skills plus visibility plus automation, future-proofing your career. Look, take this skill, work with your ChatGPT or AI, whatever, Claude, whatever you're using, build up a repository, a library, a folder that you put all that stuff into and let it train on what you do and what you can do and what you're working on. And then you get a report out of it. You ask it, hey, give me a report from this week of all the things that we've done. And it'll go through all of your other chats and kind of like make a new chat to just say, hey, go through all my chats in this folder and tell me everything that I've done. And you can get a report. Then you can turn that into, hey, go online and look up jobs that align with my skill set. Output all the skills that I have based on all the things that you see and look at any jobs and see where my skills fit so I can fit the title. And what else do they need that I don't have? And so that way I can go work on them. So I can meet the requirements of what's now being requested of me. It's the reason why I'm working on consultation for next year and through this winter, actually. I'm trying to see if I can book enough time to have a very interesting winter because I think a bunch of companies are going to need to be rocking and rolling in spring to just survive. Creation as therapy. I think that we're going into a space where, let's talk about creation as therapy. We're in an era where people have bottled up, there are a lot of people just spouting out and lashing out anger. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people who really want to be cathartic and releasing pain, not just being more frustrated, more angry. So let's make a distinction of that. There's plenty of people who are angry, who are venting that anger only to stay angry because all they wanted to do is still complain about their lack of control. What I want to bring onto your hands is a release in the same way, but in a better direction. And that is the greatest amount of music that said the most was all the times we're talking about in the past. But what nobody really looks at is all of the greatest times where our parents said, oh, this time, like they told me, your music is not as good as our music because look at the pain that we were able to release and the fun and the joy that we were able to talk about. And I was like, well, you don't see this song and this song. And I feel like the 80s, we had the best music, and the 90s. But then the 2000s came, and that was like a lot of fun. Like, I have to say that was the most amount of fun. 50 Cent and the end of the rock and Tupac. Pac was already gone. Still Biggie was around. I don't know. Anyway, there was a lot of music, but what was beginning to die out was the depth. We still had some in R&B, but the depth was starting to die out. And that was the capitalization and the destruction of the rest of the music that was beginning to fall. Now, I believe we'll see a new renaissance because there's a lot of bottled up pain, but now there's a good portion and number of people who have the tools at their disposal to begin recording that pain and emitting it and presenting it in a way that is cathartic, healing to others. I believe we're about to see a creativity release on a large scale. And of course, there's going to be a lot of AI slop and a lot of BS, and the novelty of it will wear out like NFTs. You don't have to make it. You're just going to need to make something. What AI is going to do is allow us to channel emotion. I showed that with the making of the Armed and Dangerous song, where I had an old song, an old idea on my phone, and I brought it back, and it's bigger than I thought it was. As far as I had an idea, and I knew musically, I'm not a piano player, I'm not a violinist, I'm not a bass player, but I can hum. I'm watching my wife do it, and I'm about to get her music together. She came from the same kind of school as me, wasn't on the musician side, was more on the hustle man side. She was the chick selling DVDs and CDs at your local check cashing place. That's my hustle mama. It's allowing anyone, and she's further a musician from me, to channel her feelings and her emotions into something and get joy, get the dopamine. And she doesn't have the technical skills, but she's able to get songs in her head out that she never knew she had. The people who bleed in the public eye are the people we remember. If you listen to certain Tupac lyrics, you see it. Like Brenda's Got a Baby. I think that's the magnum opus for him. A song that could literally, if you put yourself in those shoes, can make you cry. And then to realize it was based off of a real individual, go look it up. He found out, he had listened to that song and he found out from other people, he actually found that the Brenda was a real person. He was the baby in the trash heap. But he grew up. And to find out that the song was about him. And it had that song now has even a deeper meaning to him. Letter to My Unborn Child moved me in ways that I didn't even know were possible. That I made another version of that song as a letter to my daughter that passed in the womb. The people that bleed publicly, you'll remember, because something moves you. Like some people feel it in anime, right? They're watching a scene in One Piece and they break down in tears. And that's why the anime is as large as they are. Is how many times did they make you cry? If you're creating now passion, heart, still matters, because somebody needs to cry or feel something on the other end of viewing it. Why this is important? Because I know writing that song to my daughter and then just being able to do the audios that I did release, because I never released that album. I'll do it in the future when I redo it with AI, because there's no way to do that, but I'll be able to remaster that in a different way shortly, actually, probably next year. But I know being able to vent my feelings in music when I'm doing another album and venting now, it improves your mental health, and it feels like you've accomplished something outside of the ones that the digital overlords want us to have. When you can be your authentic, vulnerable self, it's gonna outperform all of the polished bullshit. I'm not reading a script. I'm looking at the screen and I'm remembering how I felt and where this comes from. Because all of this, at the end of the day, is me. It's not AI. AI structured my information, but then I can recall what I meant and how I feel. And it's still disjointed and it's still not pretty, but people will feel authenticity. And at the end of the day, that's going to equal engagement. Is that the most important thing? No. Using creation as a form of therapy is. And these tools are giving us new mechanisms to create without having to think of the functional structures of doing so. And the more creative aspect of it now is, and as I was showing you in some of the art stuff that we'll be doing, is how I treat AI like Photoshop, but as a real-time engine for experimentation. So what is our vision? Honestly, to put passion in the platform that I'm working on. That is, of course, this, TrajicK Labs. Getting all the information here you need to actually work, to do something more. Our goal is to look at engineering. I'm not teaching you any vibe coding currently because it's not ready for just public consumption. You do need to think like an application developer or a UX UI tester. So if you've ever done any quality tests for a corporation, you can vibe code on your own. You know how to create your test scenarios. You know how to do usability. If you know how to work on the development side, the administration development side of being in quality assurance testing, UI, user interface, user experience testing, if you're from that world, then you can reverse engineer that to be able to build programs, because that's what I did. Also helps if you've built some applications, small ones, using PHP or Java, writing little JavaScript applications, HTML applications. If you can do those on your own, you start there. You're already in the pocket because you need to store that stuff to the database and then concentrate on any security protocols that you may have, which that's why I use Lovable now, because it kind of does most of that behind the scenes. I'm not putting anything mission critical, and I don't store any credit card information since we're using Stripe. So most of it is, hey, this person paid or didn't pay. I got no social security numbers, none of that crap. So it's being able to build something on your own, regardless of what it is. So if it's through automation through N8N, I'll be showing you some of the stuff that we're working with. And the stuff that I'm showing now over what I wanted to do in the past, of just putting out N8N content was, what am I actually using day to day? How much am I using it? Actually, I'm not using it as much as I thought I would be using it. Having my own N8N on desktop and in cloud, I'm currently not using it as much for automation yet, because I can't trust AI 100% with my data, or it changing something or writing something I was like that I didn't want or need, or it's even supposed to be there. It can enshittificate your entire data system. So I have to be very selective what I pull out of it to put into my long-term Obsidian vault. So my goal is to show you the functionality through TrajicK Labs of what skill sets you need that will get you jobs as well as get you employment. Jobs as in where can I work with a business and help them grow or keep them afloat? Because some of these businesses need media and they're figuring it out, but they don't really know how to go over the edge of that. And also how to find and locate these clients. I got to do it my damn self. It's one of the things I got to work on this weekend. Our goal for Premium Labs, the free labs, is to teach you the fundamentals, and it's accessible to everyone getting started. The Premium Labs are to build your career. This is where you're working the extra hours and can then begin offering the extra types of services. Transparency. These are going to be the prices for clientele because of the amount of hours it takes. I just got to put out the rest of it, but from $795 to basically $2,500. Serviceable skill. We're not BSing with that. Before, that music video was over $100,000. Now it's $2,500. There are plenty of labels that will jump on that and can put more content, media, artists out. And full ownership. You own your media. You monetize your workflow and automate your growth. I'm not here to do it for you. Though by spring, we're going to try. My focus is winter is pulling in clients. Hello, clients. My job is to pull you in by showing you just how hard the work is. And you still need it. So regardless, you should talk to us. And then it's for people who are learning to do the work. This is the level of quality we're looking for. It's not just spit out whatever you want. It's make sure that you are paying attention to details. Because AI has no passion. You do. So before we knock out and before we end this, I have a bonus that I want to present to y'all. This is the TrajicK Labs weekly operations update. I'm not doing it in this video. You go to labs.TrajicHustle.com because we're not just building systems, we're building creative freedom. Creators, we want you to earn more. Once we get into the automation I'm working on is what is the automation doing for you? And it may not be N8N. The way things are looking now, it's how do you use, if you're using OpenAI, use them to be able to do specific automations for you. There's new browsers coming out. So now even with these browsers, how do we automate workflows through the browser? I think that's our next phase before we even think about N8N. TrajicK Labs is not a platform, it's a movement. We're trying to weaponize your creativity. So if you do want to check out the ops report, this is our operations of what we've been doing. If you're interested in that and how it can potentially help you, please register to the site. I look forward to talking to y'all, seeing y'all there. Again, labs.TrajicHustle.com, and I will talk to y'all in the next video. Peace.